Welcome to episode 7 of Huddle Up. With me today, as always, Rob Clark, our quarterback and expert on all things football, and our special guest today, Jeb Keller. Jeb played ball back in, give me the year, Jeb, 2000?
03 and 04 primarily.
03 and 04, some good teams in 03 and 04. So we'll talk about that here shortly. First of all, we're going to do a couple of plugs. We got to plug our sponsor. Go ahead, Rob, if you want to give it the cue. Maxie's sponsoring us, and we do appreciate that. So when you're in ship, stop in and visit Maxie's for a cold one, and maybe someday we'll do a podcast from Maxie's. Also want to hype the spring game coming up April 11th and 12th, and we got a lot going on that weekend, a lot of things happening, but one of the cool things is we're going to have our keynote speaker is Frank Van Buren, his book, Life Lessons from the Cockpit, and great running back, and ends up a helicopter pilot in the Army, and then now he's a very successful businessman.
Make it out for the spring game, but also come to see Frank on Friday night. It'll be worth your time.
Yeah, his book's excellent. But with us is Jeb Keller, and Jeb's also a successful business guy, and we'll jump into that a little bit. Jeb, I want to start off and get a little background on you. I mean, you played well after me, so I don't know a whole lot about you. Talk about where you came from in high school, and man, what led you to be a Red Raider there eventually?
Sure. I don't know. Even if you followed the program closely in the early 2000s, you'd not know a whole lot about me. So I'm from Waynesboro, Pennsylvania, originally Franklin County, not to be confused with Waynesburg. Living here in Chambersburg, didn't stray too far from my hometown. But yeah, played my high school ball at Waynesboro. We were not good. Won 5 games in my high school career.
Wow.
I originally went to the University of Delaware, and the football situation did not work out for me there. So ended up transferring to Shippensburg, the D-line coach at the time. So I played D-tackle originally in college. And the D-line coach at the time was a man by the name of Darwin Seiler. Great man. And he was one of my high school history teachers and also my throwing coach, shot put and discus. And I just love the guy. So when it didn't work out at Delaware, he was the first call after my dad.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a spot for me. I wanted to play for Darwin. I didn't know. I knew a little bit. I had met Coach Mack when I was being recruited. Hadn't met Coach Reese at that point when I first reached out to Darwin and left Delaware. But that's what ultimately led me to Shippensburg.
Right. Now, I mean, as a fellow offensive lineman, and this is a big day for me to have an offensive lineman on the show finally, after quarterbacks and running backs and defensive backs.
For receivers.
But, so you initially went to Delaware, and I mean that's a big program, and I have no idea about your size, but you look like a big guy. What are your dimensions at this point?
It wasn't until I got to Shippensburg and got some legitimate measurements on my height that I realized I wasn't 6'2", and I'm not even quite 6'1". I might be under 6 foot at this point, but let's say program height 6'1", maybe program height 6'2", but I'm about 6'1", and height of my playing day, when I went into college, I was about 255, ended up a little over 290 when I was done playing.
Wow. All right. That would have been, I know on our team, I think our biggest guy was Greg Keller at like 270 back in those days. We had one of those. Everybody else was about 220, 230.
Yeah.
So
we had some guys in that ballpark because we were running the wing T. So our guards, which I ended up becoming a guard after transferring, we were a little bit smaller. So we had a guy named Andrew Moses from Cumberland Valley, 2 years ahead of me. And he was probably about 236.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So in that era, pretty small.
Yeah.
Tough as hell.
Did you get to play for Tubby Raymond, or was he already gone at Delaware when you got there?
Yeah, so that was kind of the situation. I signed my letter of intent February of my senior year of high school, and Tubby retired maybe a month after that.
Okay.
So Casey Keeler came in, and so he was my coach when I got there, and he kind of, there weren't many in my class, or there weren't many guys on the team when he came in that remained on the team.
Right.
throughout their entire career. So he was keen on bringing in 1A transfers. So sort of had to sit down and was that, hey, we love your work ethic. We love you in the locker room. I'd be lying to you if I told you I didn't want your scholarship back. So that was several weeks into my freshman year at Delaware.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's a shame because it would have been interesting to play under Tubby Raymond. I mean, the true originator of the wing tee.
Yeah.
That would have been quite an experience.
Yeah,
so.
for sure. For sure.
So, okay, so we get you to ship. Thank goodness.
Yep.
What would you say are some of the highlights or the big moments from your playing days?
Oh, man. Well, initially, so I get there. I transferred after my first semester at Delaware. So I get there spring semester, roll right into the winter lifting program. And the first guy I was introduced to was a guy named Greg Hutchinson, 2 years older than me, offensive tackle, ended up being a captain that following season, and just a great guy. And the team was incredibly close throughout my tenure at Shippensburg. So really, I mean, I know you're asking about playing highlights, but the ultimate highlight, the best part about being part of that program were the guys in the locker room. We all loved each other. We were incredibly close, and it was just such a stark difference from the environment that I came from.
Gotcha.
It was great. But my first year playing, so that spring, the guy who was to be our starting left guard, Chris Leavenworth, had some sort of partial MCL tear or something of that nature. So in preseason camp, leading into the 2003 season, he wasn't healthy enough to play at that point. So I can't remember which coach it was came up to me and said, "Hey, I know you're playing D tackle, but we need a guard. Any chance you might want to switch to the other side?" I said, "Absolutely. Whatever gets me on the field, yeah. I'm game." So I ended up starting that season initially. Anyway, so my first game at Shippensburg, we played at Shepherd, which, as you guys know, just a great rivalry, and a great introduction to actually playing college football. So that was a personal highlight. And then we were really good. I mean, those were 2003 was Kuhn's junior year. And my 2 years really playing were 2003, 2004. So, you know, we had Kuhn, we had Grimes, Joel Gamble had a cup of coffee in the NFL as a tight end. And we just had a number of dudes who could play. So we had some great wins. In 2004, we had a great win at Westchester to lock up the 1 seed in the region, lock up a bye. We had an amazing game at Edinburgh in 2003. We had a long touchdown pass to my roommate at the time to get the lead, and then we secured the win with an interception. So just some great memories across the board.
Nice. Well, a quick follow-up on that. Actually, you already kind of answered my question a little bit, but any other names of some people that really contributed to that team, were some of the leaders, or like you said, some of the highlight names? Of course, everyone knows the Coons and stuff like that. That's awesome. But yeah. Any other people you can think of?
Yeah, we had so opposite Grimes at cornerback, a guy named Antonio Williams, incredible from a leadership perspective, but also a really talented football player, Pittsburgh area guy. Our linebacking core was really strong. Dan Walsh, one of the best leaders I've ever been around, Cumberland Valley guy. A guy named Chris Leonetti, super talented. He was a year ahead of me. I think he was one of the Council Rocks. I think he was a Council Rock South guy.
I love hearing these names because, you don't make it back to every game, obviously, and you're at different stages in life. But like every name, you say, "Oh yeah, I remember that kid," or "Oh yeah, I remember that kid." You're not kids anymore, but it's just kind of fun to reminisce, and because that was a nice squad. You guys had a couple nice years there. Where every time I got down, I'm like, "Damn, they're doing it right."
We were tough. Ryan Hoffman, defensive end. He may have played some semi-pro ball. I'm not sure how far he got. And I got in there the year after Ron Johnson graduated, so I just missed his years. But you guys might be familiar with his name.
Oh yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing when you say those names how loaded that team was.
Loaded.
I mean, that team was that's just like every one of those names on there that you're dropping is that's a stud player in college and even beyond, a lot of them.
Yeah. Oh, I would be remiss if I left out my roommate's name too, Pat Ferguson. Nobody knows who he is, but he was like a little Wes Welker, Wayne Corbett type, three-time first team all conference.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
3 times.
3-time first team all conference. And we're running the wing T, so we're not throwing the pill a whole heck of a lot. But
Rob knows
when we did, he was always there and he always caught it.
Yeah.
He couldn't juke anybody to save his life, but he'd catch the ball and he'd run until he ran into somebody.
You need those guys.
Yep.
Well, and that's just like, what a great experience, when you have that kind of success and as a team, and just what a great opportunity for you and the rest of those guys. Now, you said something to me in your email that you sent to me, and I just want to follow up on it. You talked about maybe some things that happened, maybe that, some decisions that you made that maybe were challenges for you during your years of ship. Can you talk about that a little bit and what you're referencing?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I think I talked about the experience at Delaware a little bit, and that kind of, after that went down, I made the decision that I just wanted to play football. I didn't want to be on a practice squad for 4 or 5 years and not play in games. And I think I kind of took that maybe a little too far. I think I became maybe a little uncoachable and just wanted to do things my way. And in retrospect, I gave 100% on the field, practice or games all the time, but I didn't put the work in outside of football that I needed to. I certainly wasn't living like a saint, far from it. Wasn't eating right. I was certainly having a good time at Shippensburg. And didn't put the time in the film room. And really what probably the biggest factor was that towards the end of the 2003 season, I tore my ACL. I'd partially torn it in the spring and played with that until about the 8th game of the season, tore my ACL, and I just didn't take the rehab as seriously as I should have. I'd like to think that maybe I came back a little too soon, but that wasn't it. I wasn't in the training room like I should have been. I wasn't rehabbing like I should have been. And then that ultimately led to just a string of continued knee and other injuries. And ultimately my early retirement in spring of 2005 after the 2004 season. So, I had grand illusions of the player that I might become when I was heading into college, and it didn't quite work out that way for me. But the experience was incredible the whole way through. And even as I was having, in 2004, I wasn't really playing. I missed the first probably 6 games of the season due to injury, and then got some spot duty in another 3, and then tore my knee again towards the end of that year.
That's rough.
And it just, even when I was going through the personal difficulties with, just the brotherhood of the team, really just made it an incredible experience.
Wow.
But what I was referring to in that portion of the email, Fran, was it gives me an opportunity to look back on my shortcomings and what I had control over that I didn't do to get what I wanted out of the experience from a personal level, from an individual goal standpoint.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, football is such a grind, and we're fortunate that we can have like a season like you had in 2003 and things like that. But the wear and tear, the physical demands of it, everything, the pressure of it. I think it's a lot of that is just not regarded very highly, like what you endure during a football season when you're in college. And especially I think back in those days too, where you had requirements as far as classes and academics and other commitments and all of that. But I think, and you talk about this a little bit too, is like, coming out of the other side of that and what you've learned and, and what, how that builds you. Because I think every player faces a level of adversity at some point in their career, and you can just overcome that and fight through it and learn from it, And it's not, I think like you said, you've learned from that.
Yeah,
for sure.
I think your capacity to kind of look back on that and that introspective component, I think that's really healthy. And I do think younger people should hear this. Like, not everything is going to go the way
Oh
we
yeah.
hope it goes. That's life. But I think football is a great example, and you roll with the punches and look what it's turned into, and that's, I'm going to jump to my next question here, but you've had a lot of success. What are you doing today? And what did it take to get there? And I'm sure, this, what we just talked about, is a major part of it.
Sure. Yeah. And I'm glad you brought that up about the young people, because it did. I I have done some coaching, and I've certainly utilized that perspective in trying to, impress upon the kids that I'm coaching. Hey, this is what you need to put in to get out what you want. If these are your goals, you need to put X amount in. But in terms of what I'm doing today, so I am a commercial insurance agent. But I was practicing law here in Franklin County for a number of years. I had a law firm. My partner and I merged with another firm here in Chambersburg, summer of 2023, and I went back into commercial insurance, which is what I was doing prior to law school. So it's actually allowed me an opportunity to get back into coaching a little bit. I don't know. I may have to go on a hiatus for a little bit, because my wife and I now have 2 children.
Awesome.
But I did some coaching prior to law school, and have done a little bit now since I've returned to the insurance world. But yeah, that's what I'm into now. I still have a few cases. I'll keep my law license active.
Good.
I'll certainly help where I can with the Red Raider for Life
Beautiful.
club, and any kind of legal guidance that may be necessary. So,
How'd you get into law? What was the driving force there?
yeah. So,
Especially since you were partying in college, from what it sounds like.
well, I can't believe anybody accepted me with my GPA as a human communications major at SHIP, but they did. So I'm a 5th generation lawyer. So my dad and my uncle had a practice based in Waynesboro, but they had a Chambersburg office as well. So they had a law firm. My grandfather was a judge in Franklin County, and from even prior generations. So it was always kind of in the back of my mind, hey, this is maybe something I want to pursue. It was never really, I was never really dead set on being a lawyer practicing law, but there are things about it that drew me to that field, like the theatrics of the courtroom. That there's a competition element. You don't really understand when you're kind of choosing a career or thinking you might want to do it. Hey, there's a lot of things that aren't all that glorious about the practice of law as well. But yeah, that was the primary driver of me going to law school and practicing law, and it was a great experience for me, because I got to work with my dad, which was
cool.
You can't beat that, at least for me.
It's interesting that you say, and I know Rob can relate to this, because you said the competition, and it's funny. As an athlete, former athlete, whatever you want to call it, but you do find ways to compete in everything. Like when I started my business, I was competing against the guys doing the same thing, and I felt like it was a competition. And I know Rob with coaching. I mean, that's hardcore competition. Obviously, as a lawyer, you're competing against other attorneys. It's funny how that stuff carries forward, that you don't even think about it when what you're crafting or developing when you're playing ball.
Yeah. And I think there's a void too. When we're all of us get done playing, there's a void there that you're never going to fill that locker room, that brotherhood void. Maybe you were able to do it, Rob. I know, when I'm coaching, that's kind of therapy for me.
I agree. Yep.
But yeah, you got to fill, or at least for me, and I think for a lot of people, there's a void there when you get done playing that you got to fill somehow, and hopefully you do it in a healthy, productive manner.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do think the locker room is one thing that you're right. Like the brotherhood, it's not going to replace it. But we did have a lot of fun as coaches in locker rooms too. The kids are doing their thing, but we were doing our thing too. We always enjoyed laughing at them. And so it does bring it. And, the competition component in everything. I mean, I'm getting up there in years. We still play hoops 2 mornings a week, and we get after it. It's not the same ball we used to play, and I think we all do that. Everybody's got their own way of doing it, and I do think it's the result of growing up as athletes. And it's not just football. I think it's everything, but I think we're a little different because we were a little bit, serious about it, and maybe a little too serious sometimes.
Yeah.
Now, Rob, are you old enough where you have to step into your jump shot? I know I play with a couple older guys who have that step into jump shot.
I'm not there yet.
It's like a push shot. It's like a push.
I have my famous set shot, but I did that in high school. Yeah, okay. I didn't do that in high school. It's a set shot. Now, it gets blocked all the time, but we have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
My level of competition is now golf. I'm in a golf league. I play golf with a bunch of guys. Nothing too physical anymore.
What's been really great as a former player is the consistency within the coaching staff. And I think, even hopefully for you guys too, it's just a welcoming environment for alumni. It's really cool for a guy from my era to come back, and Mac was the defensive coordinator when I was there. Coach Burkett was the linebackers coach. Coach Lee was my offensive line coach. We had a lot of beef when I was playing. We didn't really see eye to eye, but now I appreciate him and understand what he's trying to get out of me. But there's just the consistency in the coaching staff and the environment that they have created for us as alumni is just something special, I think.
It's a super young team this past year. It was a tough year on a number of different levels. But I think Mac is trying to really build something from the ground up, and he's had that taste of very high level success, both as an assistant under Rocky, but on his own, and you look at these young guys, and it's funny as a lineman, there were some times this year where the line got pushed around a little bit, and they were young. They were a bunch of freshmen, and you're out there, and I don't know if you experienced this when you guys had a pretty tough line. But there's some tough competition on the other side of the ball, when you're out there and you're going one-on-one, and the only time your name gets called is when you're, holding penalty or offsides, But it's a battle out there, and we've talked about, Rob and I have talked about this with numerous guests on our program, is that there's nothing weak about Division II football at any level, especially when you see all these guys who go into the pros and make some time,
Yeah, that's one thing I talk about relatively often is, I didn't think when I was in high school, I was trying to play in the highest level that I could. And I kind of discounted Division II or PSAC football. And then you get there and you realize, holy buckets, these guys can play.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily realize how good the competition is until you're in it.
Jeb, we expect you to be up at spring game this year.
What's the date? We got to get the date out there.
April 11th and 12th.
April 11th and 12th. Okay.
12th game. Yeah, we'd love to have you up there. We are, we're trying to push it out there and get the word out now. So, it'd be great to meet you face to face instead of on Zoom.
Yeah.
And likewise. I'll try to get a crew out there.
Yeah, we'll meet at Maxie's. There you go.
Meet at Maxie's.
You spend a little time there. I spent some time there. I know that.
I spent some time there.
We all have.
Just a single solitary toilet in the bathroom, no walls around it. Yeah, I remember it well.
Nice. Hey, Jeb, we appreciate you taking the time tonight. You did a great job. It was it's always interesting talking to the alumni and guys who've been out there and are doing well right now, especially. Congratulations to you on your success.
Yeah, thank you so much. Appreciate you having me on.
Oh, yeah. Good
Thanks
stuff.
for being on. Good luck, Jeff.
Yeah.
Thank you much.
Rob,
likewise.
Thanks a lot, Rob. Don't forget Maxie's is our sponsor. Thank you, Maxie's. Spring game for everybody this year. April 11th is the reception Friday night. April 12th is the actual game and all the other activities we've got going on. Go to rr4l.org if you want to learn more about it. All right. Thanks, guys. And next week, we got Jimmy Monis coming on, 1972 Hall of Famer. So stay tuned for that. Coach Mo. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
You too. Thank you.